With 900 fires, over 10 million hectares of land burned, and tens of thousands of people evacuated, the 2023 wildfire season has been declared the worst in Canada's recorded history. And the trend is evident across the globe. The sheer magnitude of incidents worldwide has reignited discussions about humans' relationship with fire. Not simply how can we contain wildfires, but also how can fire be harnessed and used responsibly? And what are the benefits?
Fires are a natural part of the forests in Canada, even though they are dangerous and cause a lot of problems with smoke.
Basically, every fire that we put out is an area that now needs more fire, right? Because the fires are natural in California.
When roaring flames, charred houses, and orange skies hit the headlines, people are reminded of the ruthlessness of fire. But experts say the fear of fire and the mindset that every fire should be put out must be changed.
In the past, before European settlement of Canada, fires occurred much more frequently and regularly. And then when European settlers came over, they immediately started bringing fire exclusion policy. So basically, where they didn't want things to burn. So they started putting out wildfires.
I think Californians really understand that fire is a natural process and that we've made a mistake in excluding it for so long. And so there has been this kind of social and cultural shift toward identifying that fire is important and that it's not something that we can just get rid of or take out of the system, that we actually need it.
CGTN spoke to fire experts in Australia, Canada, and the US, all fire-prone countries, to reflect on the human-fire relationship. They all agreed that the solution is to use fire responsibly.
We need to burn to improve the health of the landscape.
That's basically burns where you're just trying to remove vegetation that would be available to burn in and out of control fire events.
We can actually mitigate a lot of those climate impacts by restoring fire resilience and by restoring fire as a process.
But how to safely make use of flames? The two most discussed methods are prescribed burns and cultural burns. Prescribed burns are fires set intentionally to burn away flammable vegetation, such as dried leaves and branches, which could turn into fuel when a wildfire occurs. They're usually conducted by firefighters as part of major operations.
I think the important thing to understand is that when we use prescribed fire, when we restore fire as a process, when we make our landscapes more resilient, we're protecting ourselves from future catastrophic fires.
Prescribed fire is done by wildfire management agencies in Canada, and it's basically putting fire on the landscape over large areas that they manage. And usually it's usually for ecological reasons or hazard reduction purposes. It's where they're trying to apply a lot of fire to a large amount of area in like a very short amount of time.
But the biggest problem with prescribed burns is the risk of escalation. News of prescribed fires escaping the control lines and triggering larger scale and even deadly wildfires is easy to find on the internet.
Prescribed fire has taken on like a paramilitary approach in Canada. So, it's done very officially. There's aircraft often involved. Everyone's on their radios. It's dangerous. Like prescribed fires can escape.
Fire behavior is mostly affected by weather, and the weather is somewhat unpredictable. In the United States, for instance, where they do more prescribed burning, 99% of the time it goes well, but a few times it doesn't go well. And in some cases, big damages can happen. And so there's a risk. Another issue is simply that it causes smoke. This will impact perhaps the local community, or maybe it'll go up into the atmosphere and travel and impact somebody somewhere else. And this is also a concern.
We've got cases where we know populations of threatened species have been killed by smoke. So there's always a cost to it, and that's really just got to be very carefully considered.
Indigenous people in the three countries have used fire to manage their land for centuries. This method is called culture burning. Typically, they would carry a drip torch and light up the dry grass close to the ground.
In Canada, Indigenous nations have used fire on the landscape for millennia, basically to try to achieve different cultural objectives, but also to reduce fire risk.
When you have Aboriginal people doing cultural burning, they'll often do it in such a careful and sensitive way. But sometimes they'll even watch to see whether the flames are moving faster than the insects can crawl away.
When Indigenous people go out and look at areas that they needed to burn, they would kind of look at that on the landscape, like, you know, where is there too much fuel here? Like, where can a moose not walk through the forest easily? Like, why are we not seeing as many like strawberry plants in this area? And so they would make kind of those observations based on like their cultural values, and then decide when and where to burn and how frequently burning would be needed.
Culture burns are considered less risky as their intensity is lower and scale smaller. Additionally, as Indigenous people are often local to the land and so understand the plants and animals living there well, they know when and how to burn to avoid a negative impact on wildlife.
When you burn the right soil type and the right ecosystem at the right time, you're looking after that country. You're making sure that it can produce the most diversity of plants and support an animal population. And when we also burn the right ecosystems at the right time by reading country, it allows us to only burn those systems. So other ecosystems will be too green, won't burn at that time of year. So we get natural fire breaks, and allows us to burn with minimal risk and allows us to burn with maximum benefit to the environment.
Our fires are much more low intensity because when they run across the landscape, you know, and they are burning the grass and other things, oftentimes they'll leave the roots of the plants completely untouched. So then right away, that plant will start sprouting from its roots.
Prescribed burns and culture burns are two forms of intentional burning that can be used for reducing wildfire risks. In the next episode, experts will discuss how to make the best use of the two. Stay tuned.